So I'm going to give this a try. Welcome to Unraveled Game Thoughts. I'm in my trailer because all my gaming tables have been confiscated for holiday activities, which means here I am. I'm going to try not to use a mic and see how it goes. Hopefully it's loud enough. But today I'm going to talk about Wingspan Strategy. How do you win at Wingspan? Well, and maybe this isn't the right video. It might not be how you're going to win. It might be more how can you do a little bit better at Wingspan. So I'm gonna talk about that. Um, if you're familiar with Wingspan, you have all of these beautiful birds, and this is all the expansions out to date. And you have your forest row, your plains row, and your wetlands row. So there's Wingspan's a beautiful game. Um, it's not really, I think, a game that's highly conducive to, hey, I'm really going to go all in trying to go nuts beating everybody at this game. However, if you play Wingspan and if you're like us, you play it a lot, it's nice to win sometimes. My wife beats me most of the time. I probably lose, I don't know, out of 10 games, there's a good chance I'm losing 7 or 8 of those games, which probably means she should be doing this video. But she's not, and I don't think I'm going to talk her into doing a video. So I'm going to go with my strategy, or what I think is a decent strategy. Now, I will say some of the things I'm going to say in here. I just played her earlier today, and I actually won by a few points. So hopefully this can work. So a lot of Wingspan is about trying to get some kind of synergy going. It's not always easy. And to some degree, there's a little bit of luck involved, which birds are going to come out. And I'm going to tell you right off the bat that we have a house rule of we always have 6 birds showing. They usually have the bird tray usually has 3. We always do 6 and just kind of play that way because it's always nice to have more options with the birds. It doesn't seem to break the game. And the other thing that we always do is we do a draft at the very beginning. We always have a draft where you get your 5 birds, you pick a bird, and you hand the other 4 on. It doesn't matter how many players we're playing with, we always do a draft. And then you'll end up with whatever 5 birds you get at the end you will have gotten to select some of those. So it takes out some of the randomness of the draw. And the 6 birds takes out some of the randomness of only having 3 and none of them are what I'm looking for. There's a little bit more chance you're going to get what you're looking for. And then we reset all 6 between each round. So those are some home rule factors that might bear some weight, but I don't think it's going to impact a lot of the strategy that you would normally do in this game. The other thing that we do house rule is you keep your birds and you keep your food at the beginning of the game. You don't have to whittle it down to 5. Think of it like Prelude for Terraforming Mars. Prelude kind of gets your engine kickstarted, and so by just letting everybody have all their birds and all their food, you just kind of get your engine started. And everybody is starting with the same advantage. You just feel like you're moving faster. And we haven't run into the issue where it's like, oh, my tray is filled, I got nowhere to put my birds. If it gets to that point and you're that good, we're always filling up your tableau. You could back it down and go back down to some combination of 5 birds and food, or you could always, you're still in the situation of, am I creating the best engine with my tableau, even starting with that little engine booster at the beginning. So those are some things to bear in mind. That being said, I think one of the strategies I used today, and I actually won today, I think the final score was 117 to 112. I actually thought I had lost, and then I forgot that I had a yellow bird that triggered and put an egg on probably like 5 different other birds. And so that ended up giving me the points I needed to get up at the end of the game. But the real strategy that I kind of employed that seems to be, I think I've seen other players do it, and it seems to work really well, is really trying to focus on 2 of the landscapes that you're playing birds in, and not take the action of the other one if you can avoid it. So today, what I did is I decided I'm gonna try not to take the egg action. And this was based somewhat on the birds that I got out of the beginning, and not so much my bonus cards. That didn't probably factor in as much as just the birds I got seemed to be more conducive to drawing cards and potentially gaining food. So I thought I'm going to try not to have to gain eggs if I can. And that's what I did. I managed to go the whole game, and all I ever did was draw cards and obtain food. And I think I mostly drew cards, or I played birds. I would play birds. Obviously, you have to do that. But if you can play a game, I think one general strategy to try to shoot for is if you can do two of the actions and avoid doing the third action, whatever action that is. So if you can just take eggs and gain food, but not actually draw many cards, and how do you do that? Well, you do that by trying to get birds that allow you to do those actions without actually having to take the action. So how did I do that with eggs? Well, I had a pink bird that allowed me to lay eggs on another particular type of bird every time that Becky would lay eggs. And so I knew she was going to lay eggs. I got that bird out very early. I think first if not first turn, first round for sure in the game. And so I was always able to lay a few eggs without actually having to take that action. And then in the first round, I also got out a teal bird that allowed me to lay an egg on it for each other bird with a tree nest. So I ended up getting two birds that kind of let me get eggs in between, which I could use to pay for birds for out here without having to actually ever take the lay eggs action. So what that kind of permitted me to do is whenever I played a bird in the plains area, it didn't have to, I wasn't trying to get one that would really necessarily trigger. If it did, great, but I was usually using it to try and complete bonus cards because I had the bonus card that gives you 3 points for each column that had a different color bird in each row. And then I had the other bonus card that I ended up with was the one that you get you look at a row, and for each different color bird in that row, you get 2 points for that. So I ended up getting 9 plus 6, 15 points off my bonus cards for that. But what it did is allow my middle row to kind of be used for yellow and teal and pink and those type of color or white color birds without having to worry about does it take away from my engine. And so that is a strategy that turns out it worked. I actually kind of thought, well, I'm not going to play as many birds, but I ended up playing. I think I filled up my tableau and then maybe had one bird over here, and I just didn't use the birds that were in this area as much as I always use these. Now I had one bird that I got really unlucky. I got the penguin that you draw 5 cards, and for every fish in the food cost, you're supposed to put food on it. I did that like 3 or 4 times with that penguin and never got a single fish. So I was thinking when I'd lost the game, I thought I'd lost by 2 at first. I was like, oh my gosh, if that guy had triggered just twice, I could have at least tied, and if it had been more than that, I would have won. But I had forgotten about my yellow bird, so got to win anyway. But that I think is the biggest strategy I can offer is trying to do only actions in trying not to do actions rather or take actions in one of the rows on the board. And if you can find birds, like say you put birds in the forest that will give you eggs when they trigger or that will let you draw cards when they trigger, that is highly helpful. If you can find birds in the plains that will do food or draw cards, that's ideal. Or if you can find birds in the wetlands that will let you gain eggs or gain food, that is also ideal. There are not a ton of birds like that in the game, so it's not going to always be easy. It's really your pink birds and your teal birds are probably going to be the ones that are going to give you some like one-off bonuses, maybe a white bird here and there, but usually pink and teal are the ones that will get you the ones that allow you to get a bonus in a row that it's not in. The other little strategies to consider in the game If you're playing with the Nectar from Oceania expansion, you definitely want to get Nectar whenever you can, unless it's the last turn in a round, in which case you're just going to lose the Nectar. But you definitely want to take the Nectar at all possible, every possible time, because you really want to get at least one Nectar in each of these uh, places. That way you qualify. At the very least, you qualify for the Nectar bonus at the end of the round if you at least have one in each. If you don't have any, you'll definitely get 0 points. And it also gives you the opportunity to potentially win one and get a few extra points that way, which could be a difference if you're playing folks that give you a pretty tight game. Um, I always try to use my cards that I'm not going to use to get extra food. So on the third, fourth, and fifth space of the food in the first space, if I'm usually going to discard a card, it has to be a pretty good bird for me not to uh, get rid of the card in order to get that. And I tend to do the same thing with the eggs, where I'll discard a card to get the extra egg most of the time. Because there's so many bird cards, I'm going to get quite a few. Unless I'm not using this row very much and having to use alternative means to draw cards, this is a pretty handy one. And now I remember it wasn't my first turn that I played a bird, because the pink bird was in our bird tray, and I ended up using the one card draw action to gain that pink bird, so I knew I could play it and then potentially avoid ever taking eggs, which I was able to do. But yeah, that is Wingspan Strategy. There's not a ton. This is not a terribly complicated game. It's actually a great game if you're not heavy into board games and you just want something fun and easy to play and very enjoyable, almost zen-like, I feel like, just with the playing of the birds, then this is a great bird. Another tip, and this is not a strategy tip, this is just an interesting thing to know about Wingspan. If you have Wingspan, there is an app that at least it's available on Android. I do not know if it's available on uh, iPhone. Probably it is. But it's called Wing Song. And what happens is you download the app and you open the app up, and it's got like a window, kind of like as if you're scanning a QR code. And you hold that app over the bird, any bird in the game, excuse me, at all, and it will make the sound of that bird. I realize that sounds just like, whoa, no way, but it is, I kid you not, I think it does every single bird in the game. And so if you're a bird fanatic, I am not really a bird fanatic, but I enjoy birds and listening to the different sounds they make, especially if we're going to go travel somewhere and to a part of the country and maybe we'll see certain kinds of birds, or to another country that we wouldn't normally see where we live, then it's kind of cool to hear the sounds. And then if we're out having a hike somewhere or something, we hear it, we're like, oh yeah, there's that bird that we heard in the app. So really neat non-strategic tip about Wingspan. Hopefully this was enjoyable and fun. If there are Wingspan tips that you think are much more fantastic than this, because these were pretty simple, then feel free to throw them in the comments. Love to hear them. Love to see what you have to say. I'm always looking for ways that I can beat Becky. I don't even think she's going to watch this video, so you can share all the Wingspan tips you have. We play this game more than any other game in our house. Um, it's in my top 5, and I think she collectively as a couple, we would say this is our favorite game. And so if I can, maybe string together 3 or 4 wins in a row based on your comments, that would be fantastic. I will, of course, have to share these tips with her, but I'll probably beat her, a few times with your tips before I do that. And then I'll let her in on the secrets. But yeah, thanks for joining me for Unraveled Game Thoughts today in the trailer, and have a great weekend.